Friends, it looks like something big is brewing over Russia. We got a lot of airborne flights happening right now. It looks like a lot of the Russian VIPs are fleeing Moscow, and there are other areas they're moving suddenly for some reason or another. We have seen this type of action before, so let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we're covering the news items out there that the mainstream media isn't or just isn't on it yet. All right, so over the last hour to 2 hours, we have reports coming in from, there's an Air Assets Twitter account that tracks a lot of air movement and such like that, public access type stuff. Well, the Russian Special Flight Squadron right now has 7 flights up at the same time, which is highly unusual. Now, they're tasked with flying VIP and senior Russian government and senior Russian military officials around. And so it's not typical to see a whole bunch of them moving all at once. And so that's what's happening right now. We have seen this type of activity before, and this has previously been right before major missile and drone strikes on Ukraine. So we may be seeing a potential action on Ukraine, maybe in related to the Kursk offensive. Some are even speculating it could be the deployment of a tactical nuclear weapon. So there's a major concern out there about this. It looks like the government leaders are fleeing Moscow and headed to their bunkers. This is very concerning. All right, so Putin has just is just returning now from his visit to Azerbaijan. He did a state visit, went down to Azerbaijan. So one of those Russian Special Flight Squadron flights is actually Putin returning from Azerbaijan. Notably, it doesn't look, at least with this flight path, doesn't look like he's flying towards Moscow. Looks like he's headed out east. And that is notable because a lot of the other flights are leaving Moscow and heading east as well to where some of the deeper, bigger bunkers are for the Russian government. So if he's flying towards that bunker complex and the other government officials are heading that way too, other senior government officials, that is notable. Now, there does seem to be one VIP flight heading towards Azerbaijan right now. It's possible that they negotiated in such a way that Russia is going to provide some military advising, or like a general or something like that, to come down to give them advice on their conflict with Armenia. So that's a distinct possibility that we may see happen here. So we got all this movement out there, and that is very concerning. And it's not that we only have this area to be concerned about. Of course, we've been very concerned about this invasion or this. Yeah, I think there's no other way of putting it other than invasion, because we just had Zelensky out there just again today saying they're not going to give this territory back. It took out a third bridge. Now, it is notable that the area that they're trying to isolate has a river, but the river doesn't fully block that area. So you can still come in from the east and from the west. It's just blocking the north-south traffic into the area. So those bridges are certainly useful for resupplying the troops and everything like that, but they can still come in the sides, up the roads and everything like that. So it is limiting the avenues that the Russian military can come in at, but it's not really blocking the Russian military. Of the 3 bridges that the Ukrainians have now taken out as of today, as of yesterday, there were only 2 taken out, and one of those had already been replaced by a pontoon bridge. The Russians just rolled a military pontoon bridge out there and basically replaced it. It's not as good as the previous bridge, of course. Pontoon bridges are limited in their capacity, and there are some limitations there, and it takes time to get down to the bridge and everything like that. But of the two, one had already been replaced. We'll probably see other pontoon bridges appearing shortly to open up those avenues and such. We've seen the Ukrainians taking a heavy beating with their HIMARS systems. They're bringing their HIMARS systems in to take out these bridges, and the Russians are just taking out the HIMARS systems. The second to last bridge so the second bridge came under attack and by a HIMARS system and did not destroy it, and so they had to come back with an airstrike. They had a MiG-29, I believe, came in and took it out. The MiG-29 returned back to its airbase, and it was destroyed on the ground by the Russians. This new one was apparently, this third bridge was apparently taken out by a JDAM, from my understanding. I'm doing this stuff on the fly, so my recollection on this is JDAMs are GPS-guided bombs, so that may indicate an F-16 or another aircraft that was used to drop that. That is my understanding of that latest info. So we have that happening out there. Is Russia, people have talked about, is Russia going to use this as a nuclear, an option to use a nuclear weapon at this point? And the fact that they've just completed their state visit with Azerbaijan, it may have been where they were holding off from using a nuclear weapon until after Azerbaijan. They may not have wanted to freak out Azerbaijan, because if they used a nuclear weapon, then everything would be in tension and probably would have canceled the state visit. So now that Putin is free from that Azerbaijan trip, it seems like this would be a more appropriate time as opposed to before that trip. So that does make sense and tracks with that. If they're planning on using it, now would be more the time to do that. However, a tactical nuclear weapon on an area this size, one, it's Russian territory. They're going to be reluctant of using it on Russian territory because they're going to irradiate their own territory. Two, they're downwind of a lot of that stuff, so it would just kind of blow over Russian territory, which is also bad. And then three, a tactical nuclear weapon is not going to be like the answer to this, right? Like they can't just drop a tactical nuclear weapon and wipe out all the Ukrainians in the area, and that's done, and yay, hooray, victory for the Russians, right? It's a tactical nuclear weapon can take out targets, can target if there's a concentrated camp or units are concentrated in an area, but everybody's expecting airstrikes. Everybody's expecting this type of stuff. So generally speaking, you see everything dispersed. So a tactical nuclear weapon would definitely have a great deterrent effect in the fact that it will freak everybody out. But how much military usefulness will it really have? If they use a tactical nuclear weapon, they may want to try to penetrate deeper into Ukraine and hit some kind of target where, like a major training base or something where there is a concentrated force or concentrated logistical hub or something along those lines. But a lot of those targets could be hit just as well with a conventional weapon. Now, if they're looking at really shock and awing, that would be them attacking more of a civilian or governmental target with a tactical nuclear weapon. That would be a whole nother level. So, is that what's going to happen? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Let's head over to Tel Aviv in Israel. We have Hamas has had a suicide bomber prematurely detonated before he reached his target in a pickup, it sounds like. It was a vehicle-borne explosive. It did detonate before it got to its target. There's some dispute over where the target was, probably either a sports arena or a synagogue. But either way, they wanted to probably get to where there was a lot more people around. They did detonate where there were not many people at all. So that is good news out there, but it's still a shocking attack. And this is done by Hamas. So Israel, of course, has already started ramping up their forces in Gaza already as a response to this. This is a major escalation there. Speaking of major escalations, moving over to the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard had 2 ships that were seriously damaged. They had structural damage from being rammed by Chinese Coast Guard. They're disputing over some of the islands that seem to be pretty distinctly in Philippine control and have been in Philippine control for a long time, but are claimed by China. China is moving into those areas and trying to push out the Philippines Coast Guard and the Philippine fishermen. They are moving in aggressively with their ships. They're not using guns, but they are ramming the Philippine Coast Guard ships. Like I said, 2 of them serious structural damage due to the ramming. At what point is the Philippines going to just have enough of this, right? There's a certain point where they don't want to take any more of this, but also it's China and Philippines, China, right? I mean, when you're being bullied by someone much, much larger than you, there are other considerations there, right? There has to be other considerations because the simple fact is that they can beat you up. Now, the United States has promised the Philippines assistance and protection, but I don't think that the Philippines really want to cash that check over uninhabited islands necessarily, but that remains to be seen. So we got major actions happening over in Russia. The Russia-Ukraine situation has gone to another level. Russia out there saying that the Ukraine is trying to make a dirty bomb, dirty nuclear bomb or radioactive bomb. That is a serious allegation. They're trying to either detonate storage facilities with nuclear waste, or they're trying to construct something that they can then use to irradiate areas or population centers. If they move in a radioactive bomb and then disperse that over some of the villages or cities that they've captured as they withdraw, that will be a serious escalation for sure. Once you start going into chemical, radiological, or biological weapons being used on the battlefield, weapons of mass destruction, that does change things significantly. And recently it has been kind of noted that, once somebody opens up the chemical weapons bag, then that either requires a massive retaliation or the other side should start using them as well. So if they start using radiological devices, that may open in Russia's mind the option of nuclear weapons, which are, of course, very different items. Radiological weapon is basically a bunch of nuclear waste with a conventional explosive on it just to disperse it, right? A nuclear weapon is an actual nuclear explosion caused by either uranium being compressed and then at critical mass detonated, or plutonium being slammed into each other. That creates a critical mass and, once again, a nuclear reaction, which is uncontrollable and then results in the fireball, right? So they are different kinds of devices, but they are the same classification in some minds. So that Russia is out there saying that people are saying that maybe that is them trying to get political cover or trying to justify the use of a nuclear weapon. The threat of that justifies a deployment of a tactical nuclear weapon. And that's what people are saying out there. I don't know. It's hard to see. Crystal ball, mine's cloudy because it's of the future, just like everybody else's. And anyone who tells you they know exactly what's going on in the Kursk offensive is just making stuff up because there's so much disinformation, misinformation going around. There's all sorts of false claims, all sorts of people who claim that they know what's going on when they really, really don't. We will see as these things shake out. We're seeing some things like destroyed bridges that can be confirmed by satellite, but locations of units. If we can locate the unit with the commercial satellites, you can better believe that the Russians or Ukrainians could locate those units. And if they can locate them, they're going to try to destroy them with air assets or missile assets, right? So it's kind of like, you know, nobody really knows where these units are, because if they did, they'd do something about them. That is kind of silly for anyone to say, oh, well, this is here, this is there. Nobody really knows, except for the units that are actually in those areas and the units that are actually engaging in ground combat with other units from the opposition, right? So we'll keep you updated as things develop, but it does look like on other parts of the Russian front, Russia is moving forward into Ukraine in other areas. So they are continuing their offensives in around some other villages and towns further south, already in Ukraine. So this has not stopped the Russian offensives. It has diverted troops apparently, and there seems to be some reports out there that Russia is mobilizing non-infantry units as infantry units, like aerospace forces have been handed rifles and sent into battle. That is a report that has gone out there. Local militias, Russian militias, have apparently gotten involved. All these things are once again unconfirmed. But it seems desperation. That it does seem like Russia is desperate at this point in that area. All right, friends, we'll keep you up to date. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from his channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.